Hi everyone, welcome on into the very first video on the channel. Today I'm mainly going to be showing off a bit of my collection. If those who know me personally or obviously have spoken to me in the past know that I collect a range of things. Now one of the things that I'm most passionate about and have been for a very long time now is Power Rangers. I know there's a bit of a stigma around someone who, especially my age as an adult, collects and still watches Power Rangers, but for me it's the nostalgia. I grew up watching it, I grew up playing with the toys, the figures, the Zords, the weapons, the morphers, everything. And what's not to love about Power Rangers, it's about a group of people that end up coming together to protect the Earth. One of the things I'm most passionate and what I love about Rangers, and it wouldn't make the show without these, is the villains. A lot of my figures are of the actual villains themselves instead of the Rangers, just because I think without the villains there'd be no Rangers. So the villains are more just as important as what the Rangers are to the show. Another thing that I have is I have a very wide range of the Megazords. I'm trying to go in order with the Zords, so I'm starting with the very first series and I'm working my way through and having them line up in order in show order like that. Another thing that I have is the weapons and morphers. I don't have a massive range of those, but what I do have is the weapons and the morphers that I've wanted to collect myself personally. A few of them from when when I watched the show as a kid, especially the weapons. And the rest, like some of the others I've just managed to get off of eBay quite cheap, and I thought I'll add that to the collection. So without further ado, we're gonna start show off probably the figures first. Then I'll go into the morphers, the weapons, and then I'll do my Zord collection because that's going to take the longest. So enjoy. Starting off, we're probably going to start off with some of my all-time favourite villains from Power Rangers, which are the Psycho Rangers from Power Rangers in Space. I always loved the In Space series as a whole, and it was one of my all-time favourite seasons. So obviously, starting off, we're going to have the red Psycho Ranger here. I love the detail on these Lightning Collection figures. The sword, the hand, they've done a very good job on all of this. Next we've got Psycho Blue, another cool figure. Just the Psychos are just amazing in general. Psycho Yellow, one of the most formidable ones out of them, in my opinion. Psycho Black next, just again all that incredible. Especially on his staff, like all of their signature weapons are just amazing. His staff is just actually quite cool. Now, one of the probably most famous of the Psycho Rangers, mainly because this Psycho Ranger was in Power Rangers in Space, and she also appeared in Lost Galaxy. And that's Psycho Pink. Just Psycho Pink was in my opinion, the toughest out of the five. Just relentless. And didn't want to stop at nothing to destroy the Power Rangers. Almost succeeded several times, but yeah. Next we have another in space villain, the Ultimate Bay, the female villain from Power Rangers, and that's Astronomer, or if you wanna go by her actual name, Corone. She was, in fact, Andros's, the Red in Space Ranger's brother, sister even. They were brother and sister. She was kidnapped at a young age, and put under Dark Spectre's spell. So yeah. Next we have one of the most famous villains from Power Rangers history, and that's Goldar. You know, he was in every series up to, I think, Zeo. He was in Zeo. So yeah, I think after Zeo, when Rita and Zed were, like, they were still around in Zeo because it was mainly the Cog Empire. But I think after that, you know, we didn't see them anymore. But yeah, Goldar's quite cool. So there are 2 Goldar figures out. Got an collection. One has the wings, one doesn't. This one is the ones with the wings folded in. I quite like this one. I would like to get the other one just so I can have him in 2 different forms. Now, if you're a fan of the Power Ranger comics, you're going to know who these 2 are. So this is obviously Lord Draken. This is the Evo 3 version. I quite like this version compared to his others that he's got, and he's holding a saber in his hand there. But yeah, for those who don't know who Lord Draken is, he's basically an alternate timelines version of Tommy, who basically wasn't ever taken out of Rita's control, turned fully evil, went off on his own and started murdering Rangers. Next we have another one from the comics, the famous Ranger Slayer, who was Kimberly Hart. In order for so I'm not a massive, I haven't read any of the comics, so I don't know how she becomes the Ranger Slayer. It's something that I am planning on doing at some point. But yeah, Kimberly Hart becomes what's known as the Ranger Slayer in her pink, like, I'm going to say fully armoured suit with her bow. Next I'm going to show off some of my morphers that I've managed to pick up over the years. I'll just drop some of the coins. The first one is obviously the original, the Power Morpher. Obviously opens up. Interchangeable coins, so I've got the Tyrannosaurus coin in that at the moment, but obviously you've got Triceratops, Mastodon, Pterodactyl, Saber-toothed Tiger. The 5 original power coins, along with the Power Morpher there. Let's get into frame. There we go. Along with the Power Morpher there, and the 5 original power coins are trusted to 5 teenagers with attitude. Now, they never had an attitude, so I don't get why that was a thing. Trusted to 5 teenagers with attitude to help protect the Earth from Rita Repulsor. The 2 coins that I do really want to get are Tommy's for his Dragon Zord and his White Tiger Zord. When he became those 2. So that's one of my favourite morphers. Another one is, you may recognise this. This is the Space Patrol Delta B Squad morpher. Basically, SPD emergency, they morph. It also acted as the SPD were a police force of type. It was also how they judged aliens and criminals, if they were guilty or non-guilty. It would flash between the 2 in the show, and it would just distinguish if they were guilty or not guilty. Another SPD morpher. This came out into fruition with the Omega Ranger, who was from the future. It's like a communicator as well. This was also, it acted as like he had an overdrive mode where he would pull the throttle and it would power him up a little bit, and so he'd be able to do basically his special attack. Now this is quite a sore topic in the Rangerverse, but I quite like the morpher. So this is from Power Rangers Megaforce, which is probably one of the worst seasons. but I quite like the morph. Like the morpher, it acted as like a card slot, so they would have Ranger cards, and they would put it in, and that's how they would morph. It's quite a clunky morpher. Like carrying that around with you would just be torture. So yeah, that's my morpher collection. I am hoping to get more at some point. But yeah, so we're gonna move on to like some of the weapons that I've managed to pick up next. One of them is another SPD item. This is the SPD weapon. I think this is like one of the main weapons that every ranger had. It acted up as a blaster. So that was the blaster mode there, and it also acted as like a melee weapon as well, kind of like a baton that they were able to power up and shoot with as well. Couple of weapons here from my all-time favourite series, which was Power Rangers Dino Thunder. This was the T-Rex staff, which would also function as a blaster at some points. I have there was two versions of the toy made. The one that I've got is the one that can go into the blaster and like the T-Rex cannon mode. I'm hoping to find the other one at some point. Next we have the white Dino Thunder is dagger. As you can see there's the head of the dagger, and it came out like that. It's quite a cool dagger, quite a cool weapon. But yeah. And then obviously we can't really have the Dino Thunder weapons without the Terror Grips. So these are obviously the Terror Grips were quite I think they're quite a cool concept. Yeah, as a melee weapon, they're quite cool. But yeah, they're quite cool weapons. They're kind of like mini daggers that they would have, like the Yellow Ranger would have in her hands. So kind of, yeah. And then we've got the Triceratops shield. To kind of, yeah, they hold it like that. That's the shield mode. That's quite a cool weapon as well. None of the Rangers really had shields, so this was quite a cool concept to have as a weapon. And I'll just grab it quickly. One of my all-time favourite weapons is the Zeo Gold Staff. Now I'm going to have to move the camera for this back onto me. So this is quite a cool. This was from Power Rangers Zeo. This is the Gold Zeo Rangers staff that had two modes. So it's like an actual staff mode like that, or it had it like that. Those came open. And it was kind of like a blast of some sorts as well. I love this weapon. It's amazing. This sits on my wall, so I have it mounted up on my wall. It's one of my all-time favourites. We're gonna head into my Megazord collection now, I think. So on to the Zords. Using my phone to just capture this part because it's slightly easier. The OG Megazord. Which was the Dino Megazord, which combined of the T-Rex, the Mastodon, Pterodactyl, Saber-tooth Tiger, and Triceratops. It formed this. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. It was one of obviously the first Megazord we ever saw, so it's quite a very cool Zord. Next we have Tommy Oliver's Dragon Zord. This was one of my favourite Zords, I think, from the original series. Started off as an opponent for the Rangers, then became a team, and they would combine. I am missing one Zord from the original show, which is currently just quite hard to find. Next we have Tommy Oliver's White Tiger Thunder Zord. This was his next Zord after he lost his Green Ranger powers. He then became the White Ranger, and then you had the White Tiger Zord. Next is Tor, the Carrier Zord from Power Rangers Season 2. He was basically a Carrier Zord. The White Tiger Zord could go inside him and make like a kind of like a combination of the two. Also, so could the Thunder Megazord, which I am now moving on to next. Here's the Thunder Megazord, comprised of the Unicorn, the Phoenix, the Lion, the Red Dragon, and I forgot the name of this one. It's hard to remember like every single Zord. Next we have another Zord which never used by the Rangers, but it was Lord Zed's personal Zord that he had built to go up against the Rangers with. Didn't really get to see much of it in the show due to it kept losing power. And then we didn't see it again until Power Rangers Wild Force, where remnants of the Machine Empire were trying to like unearth it on the moon. And that was the last we saw of it. Here we have the Ninjetti Megazord, probably most famous for obviously Mighty Morphin Season 3, and then it also appeared in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers film that was, I think, in the 1995 film, but this is the show version. You can tell it's the show version just because the metalwork on it isn't chromed and isn't like made like, you know, actually made to look like metal. Next we have Tommy's other next Zord, which was the Falcon Zord. This would combine onto the Ninjetti Zord and make the Falcon Ninjetti Sword. There's quite a cool Zord, but on its own it's not very useful. Next we have the Shogun Zord. This appeared in more or less to the end of Season 3 when they lost to the Ninjetti Zords. These were given to them by the Alien Rangers. Yeah, so in the show, this was actually this one here. It was white. I'm gonna get a friend of mine to paint that white for me. But the Falcon Zord would also combine onto the Shogun Zord to make the Shogun Falcon Zord. And then when they lost that Zord, they lost their powers, they had the Zeo Rangers. It was the same team up, just different weapons, different powers, different morphing sequences, different morphers. Quite a cool Zord. I need to clean this one up a little bit. It's just a little bit tatty. But it's all my Zords are the originals, apart from the Dragon Zord, which was the newer version they brought out. But this is quite a cool Zeo Zord. I quite like it. I'm missing a few of the Zeo Zords. But next we're going to move on to the Turbo Rangers. They came into fruition when they needed to Power Rangers Turbo, the movie, they needed to cross a dimensional barrier, and the Zeo powers would not work once they crossed over, so they decided to bring out the Turbo Rangers. It's quite a cool Zord made up of vehicles. Second Turbo Zord was the Turbo Rescue Zord. Again, vehicles, and they just needed, I think the first Zord got destroyed, so they then had these Zords. Or they were lost and captured, and they had these Zords. I can't remember Turbo that well, to be honest. I'm missing Power Rangers in Space, my favourite season. I'm missing the Zords, but we have the Lost Galaxy Megazord. It's a fairly okay Zord. It's comprised of a tiger, a bear, lion, an eagle, a gorilla. Yeah, it's a fairly okay Zord. Obviously Zords are Zords in my case, I love them all. Next we have a Lightspeed Rescue, which was ambulance, fire truck, helicopter, some kind of like rescue one, and that was like an off-roading one. Again, vehicles. I can see like they were like a lot of vehicle Zords. and you know, I can see why they're quite aesthetically pleasing. Next we have the Rail Rescue Zord from Lightspeed Rescue. They're combined with a train, so each individual Zord was like a carriage of a train. And also they could store this Zord when it was in its like miniature version, so when it was obviously just its singular Zords, it would store inside each individual carriage, which I think is quite cool. Next we have Wild Force, one of my favourite Zords. White tiger, bison, lion, eagle and shark. Amazing. The sword for this is the shark's tail. That's quite a cool aspect of the Zord. Next we have, I'm going to get a little bit of a stick here, but this is called the Isis Megazord. This combined of a rhino, an armadillo, a giraffe, a deer, and like a phoenix type bird. But yeah, this was the Iris Megazord. And that concludes of my my Ranger collection. I'm hoping to make more, but thank you for watching. Watching the video, please leave a like and feel free to subscribe to see more content like this and other things. I am working on a few other projects for the channel. But yeah, please, like I said, please give a thumbs up, press subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell for when I post a new video. Thank you all for watching. This has been the Peaky Arrow. Goodbye.